Hey, Kentucky, this is Mary Jo Perino. Tonight, the governor reacts to President Trump's statements about the economy, while some say Andy Beshear's popularity is fading. And Nick Richards announces his NBA decision. All that and more is next on Hey, Kentucky. Welcome into Hey, Kentucky alongside LAX 18 Sports Director Keith Farmer. It's actually good to be inside tonight.
Yes, I saw snow flying around out there, so I'll take it. I'll stay inside, but 2020 can go away, that's for sure.
Yes, I'm over it. We're all over it. All right, as Kentucky crossed over the 2,000 mark of coronavirus cases, Governor Andy Beshear acknowledged that we've entered the surge of the pandemic in the bluegrass, but he also thinks we are making strides in flattening the curve. While many states still haven't hit their peaks, President Trump is signaling that the economy should reopen sooner than later, possibly even as soon as May. Yesterday, the president said he has, quote, total authority to loosen mitigation measures, not America's governors. Beshear says ultimately he believes the president will be guided by the data, but he pretty much dismisses the idea of loosening restrictions by May 1st.
They've issued recommendations, we've issued orders. Our orders are a state deal, and I will want to collaborate with the federal government as much as possible. But at the end of the day, in this state, the buck stops with me, and I'm going to protect our people.
That statement may be put to the test as Kentucky Republicans are working on a bill that would reopen some non-essential businesses closed by Beshear. Keith, this is such a delicate balance because we all want things to open back up. We want our economy to get going again. We just don't know the impact of that.
Yeah, all sooner rather than later. We certainly want to be out of our houses and out and moving around. But I mean, when you hear about seasons maybe being on hold, as I heard, mentioned on Twitter, till next year, till 2021. I mean, how can you expect us to just go out and go business as usual? And it just worries me to get out there too fast and to have this just continue and have to go back indoors for another amount of time. I'd rather just get it over with, take our time, and make sure it's certain that we can go outside and gather together.
I'm with you on that one. Well, last week brought news of layoffs or furloughs for thousands of workers at hospitals around the state, from Lexington to Louisville to smaller towns like Danville. Many of those workers may be tempted by offers from other states where there are lucrative opportunities for anyone looking for work in the healthcare field. Governor Beshear expressed concern about this fact at a recent news conference as he held up a job listing from New York, where the coronavirus has hit hard. The ad seeks physician assistants and nurse practitioners at a rate of $13,000 per week, along with a food stipend, travel reimbursement, and luxury lodging. Beshear pleaded with Kentucky workers to stay here and reminded them that if they leave the state in return, they'll have to quarantine for 14 days. But Keith, I can imagine that with a 13 grand a week, that quarantine would be worth it for some people to go and have that kind of work.
And you know how media people are, the fact that they're also giving you money to eat on and everything. I mean, we're going to take that and go right there. But yes, you're right. The 13,000. I mean, I'm gone and I'll come back and get my job and sit out 2 weeks and then start working here gladly. I mean,
yeah.
to help. I mean, you are putting yourself on the line by going to New York because it's hard hit. But at the same time, if you can make that kind of money and come back, I'll sit out 2 weeks.
Yeah, and especially if you're not working here. If you've been furloughed or laid off, I mean, why would you not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. Not all businesses have suffered from the COVID-19 outbreak. Key links in the supply chain like Amazon have seen demand soar over the past few weeks. Consequently, some say now is the time to halt tax breaks to the e-commerce giant. Amazon recently announced plans to hire 100,000 new workers across the country, and it employs thousands of Kentuckians at 5 distribution centers and a handful of other sites. Critics of corporate tax subsidies say a percentage of Kentucky employee paychecks are paid back to the company instead of going to local municipalities and the state, and the tax breaks are worth more than $117 million. Supporters of the subsidies say they bring jobs and regional investment. Keith, this again is one of those balancing acts, because every time I hear Amazon didn't pay taxes, I'm like, excuse me, what? But
Right.
They're also hiring 100,000 people.
And they're here in the state, which is what we want for them to give Kentuckians those jobs. So, you're right. It's a tough balancing act, in giving them a break and Kentuckians working.
Yeah, and Amazon's going to be one of those businesses that grows, probably, if that's even possible during this.
No doubt.
Some believe the Easter Sunday showdown between Governor Beshear and the state's churchgoers signals the end of his overwhelming popularity. The governor's decision to have state police record the license plates of parishioners who violated his order about mass gatherings on Easter seems to have tested the patience of some and prompted a federal lawsuit from the Bullitt County Church in question. Others have taken to social media with their open defiance of Beshear's message about social distancing. The whole situation has stirred up criticism from Republican leaders, prompting Democrats to express shock at how quickly the spirit of cooperation during a crisis had fallen apart. Keith, I can relate a little bit. Like, I was super happy to spend time at home with my family for a while. Now I'm like sick of seeing all of them. So I kind of get it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it's tough being at home and everything, but again, we're wanting to do what we can to make sure that we're all safe. And, yeah, I get it. At some point, we knew it was going to fall apart and everything was going to become bipartisan. Maybe it is a little sooner than we expected.
Yeah, it happens. Listen, also in Frankfort, Governor Beshear is using his line item veto authority to strike limited parts of the state budget passed by lawmakers. The legislature reconvened today, and lawmakers will consider overriding vetoes and could take final action on some bills. The governor's office says he struck language that would limit his flexibility to respond to the coronavirus crisis or would hamper the state government. Republican leaders criticized some of the vetoes, saying they represent a lack of bipartisanship. Keith, I don't know. There's a checks and balance system for a reason.
And yeah, you're right, exactly right. And the government is doing what it needs to do in a very difficult time, and they're doing it very creatively. And in a way, it must go on, especially to get this budget passed. And I know we are going to see some partisanship take place, as they try to do this and trying to get their things through the government.
It seemed like it was a fairly bipartisan budget when it was sent to him. So I hope he does consider that a little bit too.
Very, very true.
All right, now let's turn to UK basketball. Nick Richards has become the latest cat to announce he is entering the NBA draft. After 3 years in Lexington, the big man said this morning that he would be foregoing the remainder of his eligibility and turn pro. His statement read, in part, "Thanks to the best coaching staff in the country and my amazing teammates, I've continued to develop my game and improved each and every year. I told you then that I've had the time of my life suiting up for the best fans in the country, and I stand by that." Richards went on to express regret that he didn't get to compete for a championship this season. Keith, Nick Richards might be one of the biggest successes of Coach Cal's coaching career.
No doubt about it. I mean, he could easily made one of those mistakes and gone after his freshman season, even though he didn't hardly play at all. And then now you see he was probably second choice for SEC Player of the Year behind Emmanuel Quickley. I mean, he made a big jump, and not that he cares what I think, but I feel much more confident about him leaving after his junior season than I would have even last season. I think he's got a great shot at making it in the league.
Absolutely. And by all accounts, he's one of the best dudes to have played here.
Yeah, that's what everybody says about him. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a nice thing to have everybody say that about you. All right. The idea of rekindling the Kentucky-Indiana basketball matchup is a big one with NBA owner Mark Cuban. We found out on the first episode of John Calipari's new Facebook series, Coffee with Cal. It didn't take long for Cuban, an Indiana alum, to bring up the Cats-Hoosiers rivalry once we emerged from quarantine. Cal is pushing for a neutral site series at American Airlines Center in Dallas, the home of Cuban's Mavericks. But Cuban may have talked him into a game either in Bloomington or Lexington, as long as there are no fans.
I'm saying, you know what, as we try to transition out of this, we need to get those first games. And, Lexington and Bloomington are so close. We hop everybody, we flip a coin, decide where the game is played that way. We get on buses, we take the buses right to whichever stadium, whichever arena, and then we just throw the ball up with fans or without, made for TV. If the NCAA doesn't want to go for it, I'll figure it out. I'll get us the TV partner, or you have your TV partners. IU's got theirs. Let's just do this, right? Let's just be that first game coming out for college athletics that gets the ball rolling.
Yeah, Cuban went on to suggest that a fundraiser between the two fan bases could be used to decide which team hosts. Keith, Cal said, yeah, I'll happily do it without fans. I don't want any Darius Miller type stepping on ankles stuff going on.
Yeah, it's funny because I get why he doesn't want to play in Bloomington. I covered the Hoosiers for a few years there when I was in Louisville. It's a tough place for people to come in and play. I saw Louisville play there, Kentucky play there, but I miss this series. And if it takes playing on campuses, I wish they'd do it. I mean, it's such a great series between bordering states. It needs to happen.
It is, and two historically, blue blood type programs, although Indiana hasn't really been there lately. But.
Right.
All right. Up next on Hey Kentucky, we're going to talk to the new boss. LAX 18's general manager, Andrew Shankin, will tell us about the unique challenges of taking over a TV station during a worldwide pandemic. Stay with us.